Hello and welcome to JagaVision, episode 35. We are going to be doing a little bit of a different episode today. We're going to have Sister Speak joining us in a little bit. We're going to be enjoying some Xiang together. We're going to start off the show, though, with an opportunity here to try out some tea from the Wuyi mountain region. So, to give you a little bit of an idea, this tea is about 2 years old. And normally I wouldn't drink a tea that's 2 years old, not because I have some sort of complex, but because there's this idea that if we drink tea that isn't fresh enough, we don't really get a sense of what that tea has to offer. But this region's tea is charcoal roasted. It's manipulated in such a way that it often tastes better at this point. So tasted it when it was fresh 2 years ago. I'm going to taste it again now. So I saved some. See how that goes. I'm Jared Nyberg, by the way, for those of you who are tuning in and haven't watched JagaVision in the past. We host these sessions every Thursday at 1 o'clock. We go live. And yeah, it's been quite the roller coaster fun experience, having some really amazing industry folks on, some culture folks on, music industry, tea industry, coffee industry. It's been really great. Okay, so let's see how much I saved and then brew accordingly. So ideally we would have at least 5 grams, and we don't. Okay, so that's 3 grams. Give me a sec. Okay, this isn't going to work for our purposes, so I'm going to actually put that off to the side. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with another tea that I put off to the side. But so that was a Dahong Pao, a Shuishan Lao Chong. This is a similar quality, different cultivar, same farmer. So Wuyi Mountain again, but this is a Rogui. When I was first introduced to these teas, I was pretty excited. I thought that it was such an interesting opportunity to try charcoal roasted teas. There's quite a following, and these are really expensive even at origin when they're good. And this is good stuff. This was actually shared with us by a fellow named David, a dark matter scientist who's not in the tea industry but would fly over from Chicago to have tea together because he just wanted to hang out and drink tea. And the aromatic on that, wow, I wish I should have showed you the dry leaves beforehand, but that's what they are like in the pot. It's just got this really, really, really amazing aroma. Okay, let's give this a go. I'm gonna fill it to 140. I stuffed this with 8 grams of leaves. The word is that the reason why they're packed with so little leaves is they're meant to just be brewed with like just this massively large dose, and you're supposed to just do like maybe 10 seconds, and you after a rinse, and you're ready to go. This gives you this really thick, rich extraction. So I've kind of been looking at these for a long time, not knowing when I should have them, and feeling somewhat guilty to not share them with somebody. But I think mid-pandemic, it's okay. I'm sharing this with you, those watching. So, yeah, Rogui. So Wuyi Mountain is one of the regions, as far as I've learned, when it comes to dark oolongs, Phoenix Mountain. We're going to be doing an oolong from the Phoenix Mountain region in a little bit here with Sister Speak. And I brewed that strong, but that's really good. Like, I put 8 grams for, like, honestly, all I could fit in the pot there was 130. Yeah, and there's just this. What's really interesting is when a tea from this region is done well, there's just so much interesting flavor happening. And I've been drinking since the first visit from David 2 years ago at Jaga Silk. I got really into this style of tea. Not at the level where it's like something that's all I'm drinking, but definitely when I get samples in, it's a genre that I get quite excited about. What I have noticed, though, is that my connections when it comes to getting good teas from this region are not strong. So I can't get this tea. This is a gift. And when I've shared it with people who've been drinking Wuyi Mountain oolongs for decades, they get really excited. This is from the corner region, and I actually don't know how much it is. I just know that it was a gift from a dark matter scientist whose family is in the region and grew up there and has good connections and has a really good palate. So I could be drinking like ridiculously expensive tea and I don't even know. But that's really good. Like cinnamon, talking like violet. We're talking some sort of like rich umami. But a different kind of umami than you would have in, say, like a sencha or something. It's just this very deep background brothy note that's almost pretending to get a little bit astringent, but it's not. Really good. You know, thought came into my mind while I was drinking this. I was just, when I was on the session last week, I kind of felt bad. I was kind of joking around with Josh Delsol from Level Ground, and I said, I made a comment about Tourette's, and I felt really bad about it. I just wanted to apologize for saying that, because I'm learning about what's okay and what's not okay to say, and definitely making fun of somebody's condition is, even however lightly it's put forward, is not a fun place to be. So, to learning. We have a very amazing viewer base, and somebody pointed it out to me, and I was like, yeah, not fun. So, thank you. We'll endeavor not to do that again. When you are finished drinking your cup of tea, highly recommend doing a nice smell of the cup. Okay. Getting some sort of like sugar, cotton, etc. There we go. See what I got. It's getting really, really like a nice dark soupy broth. And again, 8 grams over 120 mils is kind of ridiculous. Something's just come up. I need to hold on 1 second. Actually, I think I'm gonna be okay. One of my crew was asking me for a tea and don't have it on the shelf here. unfortunately. There's supposed to be some tsuyu hikari. Oh well, life goes on. We were going to go visit this region in was it spring of last year, and went to go and it was like a few days away, and I found out that Canadians can't go to China on a short stay visa, or at least they couldn't at that moment. So if I was in Japan and then go to China, I wasn't okay. But if I went back to Canada and then went to China, then I could go and visit like I was planning on doing. And this was all because some sort of like, I don't know, some sort of computer malfunctioning in the embassies in China, in Japan at the time. And I lost out on this opportunity. We were going to go to Fujian province and visit Anzi, and we were going to go with David, visit the Wuyi Mountains, and I was really looking forward to it. So it was extremely sad when that didn't work out. But such is life. Hopefully, when the political conditions settle down a bit and the pandemic settles down a bit, it'll be the right time to go to China. Because, you know, I think there's so much you learn on the ground. What I've learned from our visits to Japan is just how much sort of knowledge or literature is out there that's directing my attention in one way or another. And then when I get there and I start asking questions, just how much of it is really not legitimately true is kind of always a shocker. Or even if it is true, just how it's not common knowledge at origin. So being able to have these conversations and try to understand where the literature and the reality on the ground kind of find each other. So I could drink that all day. That's a really good tea. Again, I just, it's an interesting thing when it comes to values. And this is another thing. I've tried to understand in Japan what makes a tea expensive. You know, like why is this tea more expensive than that tea? Why is this tea considered higher quality than that tea? And oftentimes when I'm talking to growers that have placed really high in competition and have sold their teas for a really expensive amount per kilogram, they'll tell me, they'll say, you know what, like we have the tea merchants to thank. And I think that's kind of interesting. I guess how it works is that, you know, these tea companies will buy their teas from co-ops, and most farmers sell their tea to an agricultural co-op that in turn sells to a tea merchant. And when the tea merchants are cupping different selections, they actually offer different prices, and they can actually really auction up the value of a particular kilogram of tea or a particular lot of tea. And the first place winners obviously are the ones that go for the highest top dollar. So you get these really expensive teas where people are paying a lot per kilogram, and there's oftentimes a huge gap between the first and the second place finishers in these auctions. What is it that they're tasting? You know, some of it is just kind of leftover sort of preconceptions from the previous auction over what's good. You know, like, oh, it needs to taste like the Asahi cultivar or the Uji Hikari cultivar, or, you know, there's got to be these particular qualities for it to place high, or there's like a vibrancy, an aromatic, a depth of umami. What was also interesting is that for competition, rather than sorting out the flawed leaves from the batch, those that are submitting their teas to be judged are sorting out the good leaves. So it's a really laborious process to create, say, a kilogram of sorted leaves that are just like the perfect leaves that you've sorted out of the batch, say when you're doing a gyokuro competition, you know. And then when that gets judged, there's a major part of me that wants to understand, like I don't like to say this tastes good, this tastes bad, you know, like there's a dichotomy there, because it doesn't really exist, right? Like there's a lot of gray area when it comes to flavor, and it's very personal. So what is it that tastes good? What is it that resonates? Is different from person to person. So this whole competition thing is quite interesting because it's so wrapped up in sort of a network of preconceptions and and desires, I guess. But sometimes you just have a tea where it's just very complex, really rich, in a not necessarily in a, like a thick and creamy way, but like just like a very like full-on flavor hit, and you have this very obvious level of craftsmanship. And the first time I had these Wuyi Mountain teas, I didn't really know what I was drinking, and I'd say in 2 years, I probably still don't, but I know that I've tasted more Wuyi Mountain teas between now and 2 years ago than before I first really had them with somebody who really knew what they were talking about 2 years ago. I'd had them before that. I'd never had. It's different when somebody who's like grew up with the tea and is excited about it starts sharing it with you, and the way that you connect with the tea is going to change as a result, right? Like if you don't drink Japanese green tea your whole life, and then somebody who's like super enthusiastic about it makes it for you, then you may have had a sencha because you had a green tea at some point, but you don't. It's not going to hit you the same way as having it with somebody who's super enthusiastic about it. So let's go for a third steep here. So I lost my mass memorization on the scale here. I do remember it saying 100, my goal being 130, and when I drained it out, there was still 30 grams left. So I'm just going to put 100 grams on. I don't want to go too full, but I don't want to go too low either. Yeah, that's great. Leaves are starting to really unfold. There's different layers to each steep. Notice I did a pre-infusion there, and that definitely does make a difference. You're going to taste a little bit more complexity of flavor when you don't, when you do the rinse. It's interesting here, if you look as well, there's some sediment there. And my understanding is that teas that have sediment in them, that's actually a sign of poor quality when they're from this region. But again, this is from a fellow who grew up in the region and who's like convinced this is the best the region has to offer. Since I didn't really know what to look for, I actually asked him to get me some samples or some teas, if he could ask them for from his family, where they were bad teas. I think that's really interesting is to, if you don't know a region or you don't know an origin, is to sort of experiment with bringing in product that you know isn't good, because by kind of getting an understanding of what's flawed and what's not hit the sort of goal of the enthusiast who's searching for those good teas, if you can figure out what's bad in their opinion, then it helps you to sort of have a more three-dimensional interaction with the teas, right? Because a lot of this is all about context and contrast, right? I like this tea because it is balanced. Human beings, we really don't enjoy, I think we really have a hard time enjoying things that are really out of balance. So when we have food or drink that's too sweet or too bitter or too acidic, we get into a place where we don't really enjoy it. But if you take something that's really acidic and then you sweeten it up a bit, like lemon and water, where you put in a lot of lemons and you add some sugar and make lemonade, it helps to bring some balance to it, right? So learning what out of balance tastes like, and there's a reason why you don't see a lot of these single cultivars around either. Like, a lot of farmers know that a particular tea bush is going to produce a finished product that's a little bit too bitter or too acidic or too sweet, and they know that by blending it with something that has a little bit of the sort of missing characteristic, they're going to pull out a little bit more of a well-rounded flavor at the end. You see this done in apple ciders and wines and coffees and chocolates, where they're going to combine multiple varieties or cultivars of the botanical at work. Oh, I love that smell. Yeah. This is a really nice tea. So, when Sister Speak does come on, we plan on drinking some Milan Xiang. That's another charcoal roasted oolong. And this idea of the charcoal roast is interesting to me because you kind of get this you're going through this enzymatic oxidation to make your oolong. You're withering it, you're putting it into these really nice long needles. You're kind of twisting it a bit into kind of a twisted long needle shape. And then when you get to the end, you're actually doing, you're cooking it over charcoal, and you're starting at about like 7% residual moisture, and you bring it down to 5 or 4%. And to get there often takes quite a long time, especially because, you're not like putting it inside of a drum and roasting it. It's kind of a light roast over a charcoal burner. And we've had some really interesting variations where we had Mr. Chen, who created the next selection that we're going to have. And he gave us a Xiang, which literally translates as duck shit aroma. And there's a story behind that, but it's more of a myth, I guess, where the farmer named the tea this way so that others wouldn't steal it from him. And it was really nice. Sorry, I just thought that was Sister Speak joining us. Where he gave us like 2 different variations, and it just was interesting to have one that was roasted at 100 degrees centigrade for 15 hours, another one that was at 90 degrees centigrade for 8 hours. And it was such an interesting difference. You're gonna have to give me a second. It's 1:30, and I was hoping to get Sister Speak on sooner rather than later. And it's I'm just gonna quickly check in and see where she's at. Give her a call. So part of me wants to just go ahead and make the tea that I was planning on drinking today, but I really want to have this tea with my guest. So I think what I'm going to do today is I'm going to make the call to cut the session short today, and we'll enjoy some tea with our guest next week, and talk tea with Sam Jones. He'll be joining us from 2% Jazz. And if you want to check out which shows are happening and who's going to be on, you can always go to our top page and go to jagasilk.com and check it out there. I'm hoping to get David on the show too. I want to drink his 2020 Harvest Wuyi Mountain teas and discuss them in a little bit more detail. So that should be fun. Hopefully, we're talking about doing something in December. Christmas is going to be around the corner, or it is around the corner. So the holidays mean that it's going to be a little bit more challenging to do JagaVision, but we'll see. We might be able to do it on Christmas Eve and on New Year's Eve, but maybe not. So let me get back to you on that one. It does depend on on our guests and on the opportunities that we have. So really appreciate you tuning in though, and hopefully we'll catch you again next week on Thursday, 1 o'clock. We're on twitch.tv/JagaSilk, and we're also on youtube.com/JagaSilk. See you next week, and you should check out Wuyi Mountain Teas. Yeah, these oolongs. Try to get some really good stuff. Sometimes we get wholesale price somewhere around $500 a kilogram, and they can get up there in terms of cost. But they're quite interesting. So, yeah, you should give it a check out. Peace.